Alright, so we are back on a Jeep. We haven't done a Jeep in a while. So we got a Jeep project. We're going to be adding a sub to this Jeep. They're keeping the factory radio, so just adding a amplifier and a subwoofer to the factory system. So we're going to put the amplifier, pretty typical, where we usually put them under the passenger seat. Let's see what we got as far as equipment. So it looks like they got a Skar audio 12-inch bundle package, probably. Looks like it has an amp and a sub all in one bundle. I did have them get a add an amplifier for a Jeep, so it's just a PAC LOC Pro with the Jeep specific adapter, just to make it easy to interface. It is possible to pull low level audio from tapping in this, taking this panel off, tapping in on the factory radio, and then getting it that way. It's just much easier if you want to get it from the factory radio. Interface is nice. PAC makes a really good interface. There's a lot of interfaces out there, Audio Codes, PAC, there's a bunch of other brands, but you know, there's a lot of different ones out there. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna run our amp. Hi, Hank. We're gonna run our amp from the hood, from the battery, run power inside, and then get the amp mounted under the seat, get the interface in, and then we'll take care of it along the way. This one isn't going to be as wild as some of the other ones we've done, where we've basically taken apart the entire Jeeps. Looks like they got a interstate aftermarket battery, so that'll give us at least some good cranking amps for the vehicle and for the new system. So this one won't be as wild as what we've done before in a lot of these Jeeps. This is just a standard amp install, but we'll take you for the ride. Well, something interesting already that I found is this floorboard. I pulled the WeatherTech liner up. This floorboard is soaked. So I don't know if they've got a leak from somewhere it's getting in, or hopefully it's not like a heater core or something like that. So I'm gonna definitely have to let the customer know that somehow it's getting wet in here. I'll try to look for signs of where the water's coming from as I start pulling it apart, but just something that we're gonna have to be mindful, the customer's gonna have to be made aware of, so that they know what's going on. Yeah, I mean, this is soaking wet, like a lot of water. So definitely will have to let them know about that. I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, just gonna pull these clips using a panel popping tool. Just gonna pull these clips in this plastic trim here. I'm gonna pull this trim. I may end up just pulling the seat. It may just be faster to pull the seat rather than working around it, but we'll see, and then we'll go from there. This is definitely not the first time that this has been apart. I see that there's missing some clips in the back here, so this has definitely been apart before, prior to me. So I just had to keep that in mind. And we'll try to replace whatever clips along the way that we find. You can see that this clip wasn't even in its little holder, so we'll put it back in its little holder. Oops, there we go. And it was actually, it looks like it was missing the one for the front. So we'll go ahead and we'll get that figured out. And I also just found just looking underneath the seat just now, I also just found a wire. I'm assuming this probably had an amp from someone else at one point in the past. I don't know if that's connected to where it goes, but we'll keep that in mind as well to make sure that there's no, no live things in here. This is the panel that I pulled out right here. There was a clip here. The clip was missing here, so I'll see if I can find another clip. It just looks like one like this, so see if we can find another one. Up under the seat, which is where the amp's gonna go, well, I'll probably just go ahead and pull the seat. It'll be faster than working around it. I see this wire. There's that wire, so we'll figure out where that goes at some point. So in order to pull the carpet out, there's a couple of little twist screws here you have to unscrew. A lot of times they don't like to come off. Sometimes you gotta twist and pull a little bit to get them to come off. The other thing that's not helping right now is this carpet is soaking wet. It feels great. Alright, so once you get those two twist screws off, now you can go ahead and you can pull your carpet back, pull it off those studs. Just kind of fold, you can fold it back. This will give us the ability to do two things. Number one, give us the ability when once we get the dash off, we get the radio out, we'll be able to run wires down here to the amp. And then the second thing it'll allow us to do, this carpet is soaking wet. And there is the plug, so the plug is in, so it's not throwing water up from inside. It's got to be coming from somewhere higher up and coming down. Anyway, what that'll allow us to do with the carpet being back like that is, up here, it's going to be very, very difficult to get you guys in there, but up here there's a grommet right about where my hand's at. So if you look at the plugs for the door, it's to the left and a little higher, and there's a rubber grommet here. This is going to be where we're going to pass our power wire to the battery. It goes through the firewall. It's insulated with rubber, so it's a great place to run your power wire. I see them all the time. They come in from wherever. People are running them through the doors. People are running them up through here, through the fenders. So don't do any of that stuff. You're gonna end up pinching a wire, shorting something out. There's a place in the firewall that'll work great. Went ahead and decided I'm not gonna pull the seat out of the vehicle, but I am going to take the bolts out and I'll lean the seat back so it gets out of my way. For two reasons. Number one, it's just gonna be faster, work around with the wires. Number two, these bolts were very, very loose. So I'm gonna assume whoever did the wiring here, this wiring here, when they put the seats back in or pulled the seats out or whatever they did, they never torqued these back down. They were very, very loose. So it only took a second to take them out. So we'll get the seat leaned back and then we'll continue on. All right, so went ahead, unbolted the seat like I talked about, just leaned it back. All I did was take the airbag connector from its mount. There's a clip right here that is mounted in. Typically I have to undo these. This was not even connected, so like I said, somebody's been here before. There definitely was an amp here because there's holes in the carpet already cut and drilled. You can see, I don't know if you can see that, but there's like little spots where they pulled the carpet through. So there was definitely an amp in here at one point, at some point prior. So a lot of the things, like there was no clip here, so a lot of the little things that happen when people are in something like prior and didn't put anything back makes it actually a little quicker, because it's less stuff you kind of got to take apart. So I figured out what this gray wire actually is. It's actually a ground to the body here. I'm gonna check it. I'll see what the resistance is on this. It is tight, it is bolted, so this is the same way that I would do it. It has a nut and a bolt through the body. So I'll check and see what the resistance is on this wire, and if it's in, you know, if the resistance is good, then I'll go ahead and reuse it. There's no point in drilling another hole through their chassis or through their body when there's already one here. Looks like whoever did it the first time missed. I picked this up. This is just a piece of dynamite. I picked this up. There is a hole here, but there's nothing on the bottom side. There's no bolt, no nothing. So I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they didn't like where it was, or it was in the wrong spot, so they moved it. So but yeah, if this is okay, we'll continue to use this. Save them a hole in their body. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get to working on the wire for the amplifier, get all that ran here. That way we can close this side up, and then we'll get that dash out, and we'll get the RCAs ran down to the amp as well. Alright, so now that we've got that pretty much dismantled, ready to get our wires ran, next thing we're going to do is get this radio out, so we can get behind here and put the LOC Pro in. There's tons of videos on YouTube already on how to take a 2015 JK dash apart to get to the radio, so I'm not going to do a detailed step by step, but overall what you're trying to do is a lot of people will assume that this outer trim piece will just pull off, so they'll pry and pry and pry. That's not the case. This trim piece is part of this bezel as well, and there are some screws that are hidden. So you got, in, you know, short end of it, you're going to be taking these AC ducts out, these two centers, and the driver side one here. You're going to need to take out the window switch, because there's a screw directly behind the window switch. Up on top there's a rubber tray. You pull the rubber tray out, there's a screw here. You're going to have to take the bezel down underneath the steering column. It just unclips. There's two screws there, and then this whole bezel all the way across the top, the whole bezel will pull off in one piece. Not overly difficult to do, but there are some hidden screws, and people will end up breaking something because they just see this gap here and they start trying to pry. So I'm just gonna, you know, go ahead and quickly do that, take that off. If you're interested in how to get each individual step, you know, there's tons of videos out there on YouTube that you can use for reference. So first thing you gotta do is find the gap in the vent, and it should line up with a little notch in the top of the AC vent, and then that'll let you press down on a tab, and you can turn the AC vent and get it out. Not too complicated. I'll try to show that a little better here in the center. So in these AC vents, there is a notch, and you're going to turn that until you line it up and see a spot at the top. It's an opening, and once you find that, you're going to take a little pocket screwdriver and slide it into that opening. It's not difficult, it's sometimes hard to see more than anything. You slide that in, you press down, and then the entire vent will turn counterclockwise, and then it'll come out. So what you're looking for is on the top, so inside of here, you're going to stick a flathead screwdriver, pocket screwdriver, and you're gonna push down, and it's gonna push this clip down. It'll allow you to turn that counterclockwise and come right out. Obviously these have been taken out quite a few times. They look like they've been painted, or not look like, they have been painted. So these are really easy. Sometimes when they've been in there a while, they won't rotate as easy. But those three came out pretty quick, pretty easy. Next, you are going to need to take the window switch out. A lot of times I just grab it. You could get something behind it like a panel pop tool, but there's two big openings, so just I reach my hands in there and grab them. Then there's a red, a good, you know, lovely Chrysler red lock. So push up and undoes the red lock. And there's not a lot of wire on this clip, so there's not a lot of room to be able to I'm sorry, I gotta move this light, it's in my way. There's not a lot of room to be able to get your hands in here, but once you get your hands in there, once you get the red lock undone, then you can just press on the clip and pull the window switches out. This is where, right in here, this is where this hidden screw is. So 7mm takes it right out. Next thing is there is a rubber, and of course this rubber, of course there's a lot of stuff up here, but there's a rubber tray inside of this top. I'm really trying not to spill anything that's in here because there's a lot of stuff in here. I'll put this off to the side so we don't lose all the stuff that's in it. And up here at the very top there should be, but there is not, so this screw is missing. But there should be a 7mm screw here as well. I'll see if I can wrangle one up while I'm putting it back together. That's one of the things about working on some of these Jeeps. Oftentimes many people have been in them. In fact, there was something mounted here because there's a big hole here too. So who knows what we'll find behind here. But all you're gonna do is underneath here, pull this back. It's hinged, so let it slide down. Don't try to just yank it straight back. It is hinged. It does need to unhinge. There's two 7mm screws behind here. All right, got that one. And then the other one's on this side. And that's it. So should be 4 screws. This one only had 3. And the AC vents do have to come out before you pull this part out. You can't leave the AC vents in because they clip into the actual frame. From there, just grab a side. Doesn't matter which side you want to start on. Just start slowly pulling. And the whole top will come off as one unit. We're gonna put that in the back seat to keep it safe. And then this is where you're at. This is what you were looking for. You're trying to get to the radio. There's 4 more 7mm screws here that hold the radio in, and the radio will come right out. And just to keep the screws safe, I'm just putting them in the center console. You can put them, you know, wherever's safe for you, but center console seems always like a good spot for me. On the back of the radio, just got a couple of clips, and then you got a GPS and an antenna wire, at least in this particular model, because of the the navigation. Radio's out, and now we can put our interface in and get our RCAs running. All right, so the reason why we were getting to the radio, to make this easy, we're gonna add a LOC Pro Advanced, just a 2-channel line output converter. They got a ton of these out there on the market. I've always had good luck with PAC. We deal with PAC, so I've had a good time with them. Then with that, you can buy specific harnesses for specific vehicles. So these are, universal for the most part. You can buy a specific harness for the vehicle. So this is the harness for the, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep non-amplified systems. It's LPH CH21 is the part number. So basically, I'm going to plug this into the factory harness. This is going to plug into the radio, and then it's going to give me wire outs that are going to come into this lock, so I don't have to cut any factory wires, which is always good for customers that may not want to have any wires cut from the factory. And then from here, I'll come low-level RCA out to my amplifier. These are adjustable, so I can set gain ranges. I can add, if I need to, isolation if there's some type of ground loop issue, and then I can also do things as far as adding back bass boost, because on these factory radios a lot of times you lose a lot of that low end bass, so you can add that in just to give that kick again. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll get this set up, get this ready. I did notice that somebody definitely had an aftermarket radio in. I didn't catch this before. This is a telltale sign that at one point there was an aftermarket radio. This whole bracket has been cut clean across right here. I'll let the customer know. They may or may not even know that this was done, just so that they're aware it wasn't us that did this. But this has been cut, which is indicative. They have an amp wire in here. Looks like they may have had a bass knob here at one point, so I'm assuming they probably had a system in this vehicle before. Alright, so this is pretty straightforward. So this, obviously this plug is the female side. It's going to connect to the vehicle. This is going to plug back into the radio. And the way the lock, or the way the adapter is set up, in our case, these will work for if you're going to keep the original speakers, add amplifiers, 2-channel, 4-channel, or if you're going to add a mono amp like we are for subs and use the existing speakers. The way that it's set up is, if you read on here, you'll see that there's a section that you either cut or you don't cut. So here, if you're going to connect the factory speakers to an actual new aftermarket amp, then you'll cut them out here and run that back into your factory speaker wires, and they're not going to the radio anymore. They're going to go to the amp. In our case, we're going to leave that loop in line so that the factory speaker wires are going to get their signal from the radio, go through this, go out to the vehicle. But we're going to tap off of it here and grab it, a portion of it, and send it into the lock, or into the PAC lock device. So in our case, we have a 2-channel or a mono amp that we're going to be utilizing, so we're just going to be feeding 2 channels into it. So it's recommended to feed the front and front, left, and right in. They also give you a provision for 12 volts, ground, and remote turn on for this device, all here from this harness. So it's just basically connecting the wires to the harness. You also have an amplifier remote turn on. Now you can pull your amplifier remote turn on from the PAC, or you can pull it from here. It really is the same. It doesn't matter. They're both going to turn on when the vehicle turns on. Just make sure for the rear channel that you're not going to be using, make sure you insulate these wires. Typically we'll put some connectors on the end just to insulate them. Insulate these wires so that they can't short out on anything. And then the way that this is made, everything is labeled nicely. Just take that same pocket screwdriver, loosen up the screws, slip your wire in, screw them back down. So pretty straightforward. That's what we're gonna work on next, and then from there we'll get this mounted in the vehicle. I have found that you do have to cut these pre-stripped wires just a little bit shorter. If not, you'll end up with some copper wire sticking out of the back of the connector. It has the possibility to short, and it just doesn't look as good. So I just trimmed just a hair off of the pre-stripped wires. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and loosen all these up. Get these loosened. They're labeled, so it's pretty easy to. They also the PAC also comes with a manual, has some really good pictures inside of it. So you know, if you get confused or unsure of what to do, just look at the instruction manual, and you should be able to figure it out from there. They do a really good job of illustrating the different types of setups for different configurations: 2-channel, 4-channel, with an amp, without an amp, etc. And I didn't back this one off enough. You do have to be careful. You have to make sure it's backed off all the way, or enough to get your wire inside of the terminal, and then screw it down. If you don't back it off all the way and get it down, and you get your wire underneath the terminal, you won't actually touch the wire, which is what I just did. And last but not least, get our right channel negative in. Now it would be theoretically possible to extend these wires if you didn't want to have this PAC lock device behind the dash. I mean, you could extend all of these wires and really put this unit anywhere you'd want. We typically put them behind the dash, and I always make sure I pull on each of the wires to make sure it's fully seated in the terminal, just to make sure that they can't come out. The worst thing to happen would be this thing would be driving down the road and it would start playing because the wire came loose. Alright, so we got that set up. I'm going to go ahead and just crimp some connectors onto the end of these wires to insulate them, so that way we don't have the opportunity for a short. And we'll get this placed in the dash. We won't mount it just yet. There are settings on the lock itself that we're going to want to make sure we check. For one, we'll want to make sure we check the ground isolation, see if we have any ground engine noise or not. If we do, we can break the ground there. We have our gain, which we'll set up. Now I have a SMD distortion detector, SMD crossover detector, all those things. So I'm going to be using those tools to set it up. But they do give you a clip light here. So what you can do is you can turn your radio up to your, typical listening volume, and then you can match the gain coming in out of the radio into the lock based on your clip light here. So you can turn the gain up until you see it start to clip and then back off slightly. So it's nice that they give you that. If you don't have any testing tools, you can look for distortion and set this up with the right amount of gain. They have all those setting steps in their instructions. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can read through their instructions. But what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to match the output of the radio to this lock, so that way you don't have distortion. You don't want to be sending in too high of a signal and this trying to pick up that signal and make it a lot higher, or have this set with too much gain and you're taking in a distorted signal and just making even more distortion. So just make sure that you set this up properly. All right, we'll get this installed. All right, so we have the lock plugged in. I just got it temporarily sitting up here. Once we get the RCAs and everything pulled, I'll plug it into the radio, and then we will set our gain on the radio, get all that squared away, and then I'll mount it. Usually, or typically what I do with these is right here on this side panel, I'll put them right here, because there's not a lot of room front to back here. The radio takes up almost all of this space here, so you kind of got to get them off to the side. All right, so we're making our way back here. We're going to work on getting the power wire ran through this underneath the carpet, through the firewall, and over to the battery. And then our RCAs we will run from the radio. We'll drop down here, and then we'll come down and come to the radio. Come to the amplifier. The amplifier is going to be sitting under the seat right here. So got our power wire ran through. Just use that spot that I was talking about earlier. I'm going to sleeve the power wire. I always sleeve the power wires, and just some protective sleeving. Even though it's inside, I still, just to not take any chances. We got the radio just sitting in there temporarily for right now, because I want to set the gains on that the PAC LOC device. I did run the RCAs down. They're coming out of here. They're gonna run around this way at some point here in just a minute. So that's what we'll start. We will start sleeving this power wire all the way back out to protect it, and then we will move on and start wiring, getting our wires where they need to be to wire up this amplifier. All right, so we got this made up. We got it coming under here, following the factory wiring, coming over to here. We're going to follow this factory harness up and back out like we were there. I'm going to leave this set like this so I can adjust this, so I don't have to take the seat in and out to adjust it. So we'll leave that there. We're going to make our connections at the battery. We're done basically under the seat other than speaker wires. We'll make our connection at the battery, and then we'll check the amp out, make sure everything's good with it, and then we will set our gains. I was able to use this original 4 gauge that was bolted to the body here. I checked the resistance from this ground to the battery. It was almost 0.04 or something, as low as my meter could read, actually. So also checked it with current, put a 5 amp test light on it just to see if it would you know, make sure we could pull a decent amount of current through it. No issues there, so I feel comfortable using that instead of taking it out, having a hole, putting another one in, etc. So so that's where we're at. We're gonna go ahead and make our connections at the battery and then move on. All right, I'm not 100% sure where the GoPro died. Somewhere along the way it died. So I think I showed this. We got the wires ran into here, got our RCAs in, got this together. Power wire follows this existing harness. It's wrapped in braided wire or braided protector the whole way up. Even though there's likely not a chance of anything happening here, I still like it being protected. So this is made up. We're gonna do speakers after we set our gains. We are up under the hood, and so this is where this that firewall penetration that I was talking about comes through here, and I've got it routed down and back up. So we're going to take our 4 gauge terminal. We're probably going to go ahead and put the fuse holder here. So we'll make the connections up here, and then we'll come around and loop to the battery there. Fuse holder should be within 12 inches of the battery. I like to make them pretty much as close as possible, just in case there's any issue. There's not a lot of room under here anyway for this big A&L style fuse. You know, for this small of an amp, I'd have liked to see an AGU style. It would have just been a lot smaller, or a mini A&L, something a lot smaller. This came in whatever kit the customer had, so that's what we're gonna use. So I'll set you up on time lapse. We'll get this made up, and then we'll start setting the gains on our amp. So got this made up, so brought this in around, connected to the fuse. Got this tie wrap on this nice factory harness so it can't go anywhere. Comes around, connects to the one of the factory bolts here on the battery. I'm going to talk to them. And this interstate battery obviously is not the original OEM battery. This terminal feels loose. I can move it slightly, and I tried to tighten it as much as I could, so I don't know if that's gonna be an issue in the future, but I'll just let them know, keep an eye on it. They do make some little spacer things you can buy, but it's kind of a weird kind of setup. It looks like they just installed this battery about a year ago, so I'll just tell them keep an eye on it, make sure they don't have any issues with it. All right, so amp's all made up at the battery. Everything's made up here. So now it's just going to be a matter of setting up the gains on the amp, getting that sorted out from the radio to the amp, and then we will connect it and put the dash back together. All right, what I'm going to use to set the gains is a DD1 from SMD. So if you've seen my videos before, I've used this before. This comes from SMD out of California, really great company. They got a lot of really great tools. Distortion detector, I have a crossover detector in the other room, in the other case. I don't use that as often unless you're doing some sound quality stuff. So I'm not going to go into a big detail of how this is set up. This is just an RTA. In a nutshell, basically what you're going to do is you're going to play some test tracks through the radio. You're going to be listening for this or looking for distortion on this device. Once this hits distortion, you're going to back it off one till there's no more distortion. That's going to be your highest output that you can run that radio at with no distortion. Then you're going to set the gains on your lock. You're doing the same thing. Then I'm going to set the gain on the amp, doing the same thing, and then I'm going to set a gain overlap on the amp. We're going to play a different track, which is set up at a lower volume. We're going to get a gain overlap. That will let me know for certain that this customer, if they decide to crank this radio up, right, they're not going to end up damaging the speakers. And then I can always, you know, let's say somebody gets finger happy with the gains on the amp, I can always come back, retest it, and know what I set this up as for the gain overlap, And if the gain overlap is it has been increased, then I'll know, hey, somebody messed with the amp. This isn't an issue with the install. This is an issue with someone messing with the amp. So really great tool to be able to set up amps to where you're not going to have any issues with them. So but that's the Reader's Digest version of it. Like I said, I'm not going to go through a full video. SMD, he's got some great videos online on YouTube on how to set these up. There's tons of other videos out there. I've done some videos on them already. So we're going to go ahead and set the gains, and then we'll get this thing playing. Alright, so we went ahead and we set the gains on the amp. Got all that situated. We connected the sub up, listened to it for a while. Sounds good in here. Obviously, it's a factory deck, factory full range speaker, so the bass is even turned pretty much all the way down. You know, gain set exact and doing a really low overlap. You know, you're just overpowering the mid-range and highs in here. It's pretty typical with putting in a 1000-watt 12-inch sub on a factory system. So it'll sound all right. If they ever decide they want to either amp the factory speakers or replace them, put a new deck, amp, whatever, always something we can do later on, or they can do later on. Went ahead and put the dash back together, just the reverse of the what we did before. Just you know, a few screws here and there, and I couldn't figure out why they didn't have a screw here. I thought they might have lost it. It's because they had that aftermarket radio at one point. They cut the bracket out, so there's nothing to put the screw. I actually grabbed another screw. I know we have trust issues typically if you don't talk about something, so I went to put another screw in there, you know, to add a screw where one was missing when we started. And I forgot they cut the dash, the bracket's gone, so there's nothing to screw it to, so I can't put another screw in there. Here, now that we're finished up here, we amp is screwed down. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put the seat in, and I'm going to torque it to factory specs. I'm going to look up the specs and torque it because like I said before, they were all loose. I don't know, I guess whenever someone took out the amp originally, whatever amp was in here before, I guess they just screwed the seat down and just left it. They didn't torque it back down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that in just a second. Then we're gonna put this piece of trim back. I found, if you recall, at the beginning it was missing one clip here, and then it was missing a Christmas tree fastener here. I have found through my collection of stuff, the clip in the front's an odd clip. I actually had one. I found one, so we're gonna put that back. And then this is just a standard Christmas tree. I got a bunch of those, so I'm gonna add one of those in. Here we've got this situated. We got the fuse holder nice and secured on this factory harness, so that way as best we can it looks factory. It doesn't, you know, look like there was too much changes here. Now this stuff here, these wires, wherever this stuff is going, this little connector here, this controller that's just sitting in right here, this is not anything I did. I don't know what this is for. I assume there's some kind of lights. Maybe, yeah, they've got LED headlights, so I don't know. That's something somebody else did, so not for me. So I'm not going to clean that up, but we'll get the seat bolted in, and then we'll get it on the way. Alright, so So we're gonna go ahead and get these bolts back in, get them started by hand, and then we will torque them down. I went ahead and I put the airbag and seat connector harness back in the correct holders. It was just loose under the seat, so I went ahead and just actually put it back in the correct holders, so that way it can be like it was from the factory. I'm gonna go ahead and get these seat bolts started. And no, I am not cleaning out all of the stuff underneath the seat, because I didn't put all of the stuff underneath the seat, and the customer wants it picked up, and you know, they can go ahead and pick it up themselves if they'd like. But alright, so we're gonna go ahead and torque these. That way we can say these are torqued. So these they don't have a ton of torque behind them, but I still wanted to get them correct. Alright, and we'll do the same for the rear, and then we'll put this last cover panel on and we will be done. So I don't know really what happened to the last video. I was sitting here editing and realized that the very last outtake or very last file is corrupted. So basically we finished out the job. We sound tested it for the customer. They were happy with it. They picked it up. I had some pictures of how the sub box looked in the back. It's just a standard, you know, square box that was sitting in the back. It's just whatever the customer had purchased. So this one's done. So we do have another, I think that same customer is going to be bringing us a truck, like a 2020 Silverado, Sierra, something like that. So we're going to take care of that for them as well. We have another couple of Jeep projects coming up. Over there in the corner I have some stuff piled up for another Jeep that somebody wants to get done. So we'll probably see another Jeep project coming up. We do have a lot of network stuff that we're dealing with, so the vehicle stuff is not as common anymore, but I'll still try to put out some of these Jeep videos and you know, audio install videos when we have the time. So we'll see you on the next one.